All right, welcome back. This is going to be the second chapter of our videos, and we're going to talk here about digital asset management on the platform. Okay. Now, when we talk about digital asset management on the platform, a lot of these concepts will actually apply to the different kinds of assets that we'll be working with, but we're going to primarily focus on documents and media, since in many cases there is a large use case for making sure we organize our documents on the platform effectively. Okay. The same is true, of course, for the Livingston hotels and resorts. Okay. Obviously, there are a lot of different kinds of documents that we can manage on a platform like this. Text documents, videos, audio files, spreadsheets, PDFs, contracts, you name it. There could be a number of different kinds of documents, and we need to store them somewhere, but we also need to make it manageable. We need to be able to find things. What we don't want is a digital form of a giant file cabinet that just has a ton of files in an unorganized manner. We want to make sure that things are organized properly and easily accessible to those who are responsible for basically adding and finding this information in these documents. Okay. Now, there is an application that you can use with Liferay that's called Liferay Sync that would allow you to essentially work with Liferay similar to the way you might work with Dropbox or something along those lines. Okay. What you can do is you can set up Liferay Sync. You can basically set in your admin credentials or whatever credentials you have, and it's going to check your permissions against Liferay. Once it checks your permissions against Liferay, you'll be able to select which site you want to manage your documents for, and from there you could basically use the app either on your phone or on your desktop to open up files, make edits, save them, add files, add folders, and it's all going to sync to Liferay's document repository for whatever site is selected. Okay, so that is one way of managing your site documents once you have all of that set up, and it's worth noting here so you guys can look up Liferay Sync and take a look at that as well. Okay, you also have the ability to plug in external repositories to Liferay. So by default, server administrators will be responsible for determining how documents are stored in a Liferay site. Okay, but if you already have as a business an existing CMIS repository, okay, and then I can include things like Documentum or SharePoint, which do require some additional applications or plugins to make that work, but it is something you can do. What you can do is you can essentially plug that in and access or manage documents from that particular repository. Okay, so this will keep it distinct from Liferay, and it will allow you to basically use what you already have. Okay, so let me just show you an example of what that looks like. I'm in my site. This is where I left off in the previous set of videos. Okay, I can go ahead and open up content and documents and media. Okay, what I can do if I wanted to is I can click on the add menu here and click on repository. Okay, what I would do here is I would add the name of the repository. I can add a description if I'd like, and I can basically place all of the information I need here for my CMIS compliant repository. Okay, now this is typically, again, going to be the responsibility of another party, so it might be your IT guys, your server administrators. Okay, but once it is included, we'll be able to actually see our repository as a tab here up top. Okay, so we can jump between Liferay docs and media, or we can jump between your existing CMIS repository. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's something that you can do, or you might even see if you're working on an existing platform of Liferay. Now, whether you're working in Liferay or in your repository, there are actually a number of options for adding and organizing your documents. And this is also going to be true for some of our other assets in Liferay. Okay. First, we can, for documents, we can use folders. Okay, so we can organize things using folders. We want to organize them into hierarchies, into logical structures. Okay, this is obviously not very different from what you may have already seen on your operating system. Okay, or maybe in your own platform that you're working with right now. All right, and for documents specifically, we can actually add individual documents, or we can add multiple documents at one time, and we can also manage the metadata for those multiple documents all at one time as well. Okay, so this is kind of a cool feature. If you click on the add button, you'll see basic document or you'll see multiple documents. And if you do multiple documents, like I said, you'll be able to manage all of those, sort of that batch set of documents, either individually or as a whole. Okay. All right. Now, one of the other things that you are able to do with documents specifically is you can create what are called document types. Okay. Now, the benefit of a document type in Liferay is it allows you to select a certain kind of document that you want to sort of call out or name, and you can also add metadata to that document as well. So more metadata than just tags or categories. This would be, for example, a contract that I can create a document type for. So that way my document managers can see that they can add a contract, and they can also do things like store metadata for the date, the expiration date of the contract, or the kind of contract it is, or the name of the contract, or any other information that you might want to access. Okay, so our document managers are essentially able to search for that metadata and find the documents they're looking for based on that information. Okay, so they might say something like NDA contracts in the search bar, and they would find all the NDA contracts based on that metadata. Okay. So this is actually a very powerful tool that allows you more flexibility alongside the sort of regular asset framework metadata. Like I mentioned, in the asset framework, we do have the ability to add tags and categories, which we'll talk about in the next video. All right, now in addition to document types, what we can also do is we can add what are called metadata sets. Okay. Now metadata sets are essentially a reusable set of fields that we can use as metadata in the case where you have some common information you want across multiple document types. Okay, so let's say, for example, you have multiple document types where you require the name of something, maybe the date of something, with some additional comments or something along those lines. What I can do is I can create a metadata set that has those fields, they're configured, and then when I'm creating new document types, I can just plug in the metadata set to make sure that I always get that set of metadata for any given document type. Okay, so those are some of the things that we have to work with to make our document management much easier. And again, while things like folders and metadata are going to be features that we can use for all of our assets, document types and metadata are a special way of organizing specifically our document assets on the platform. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create some document types for the Livingston Hotels and Resorts sites. Okay, specifically in this case, we're going to be creating some document types for our Livingston Loop, so for intranet, and this will allow our HR team to have an easier time managing some employee documents, for example. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this together on the platform. I'm going to go ahead and jump over here, come down to the content section of the Livingston Loop. Okay, so if you're not already here from the previous video, okay, make sure you click on the site selector. It's going to be this little compass here in the site administration panel. Click on My Sites and click on Livingston Loop. Okay. All right, then we want to go ahead and open up Content and Documents in Media. Okay. Here we can go ahead and click on the Document Types tab here in the middle. All right, and we can go ahead and click on the Add button at the top right to create a new document type. All right, so let's name this Basic Employee Record. For the description, we're going to type in here Employee Records for Livingston HR. Okay. All right, and now we want to go ahead and open up this main metadata fields section. Okay. Now this is where we can go ahead and add some of our fields. We can go ahead and configure them and make sure that it's very clear what kind of metadata we're trying to store, and we can access that information later on. Okay. All right, so let's start by adding a text field into the right column. So come down to the bottom left here in this field section, you'll see text. Go ahead and drag that to the right. Okay, and we can configure our fields by simply clicking on them or clicking on this little wrench icon here. Okay. When you go to configure them, you will see some settings. Okay, so some values for our fields. This will be the information that we'll store in the database. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and double click on the value for the field label. Okay, so it'll say text for now. And we want to change this to full name. So we need to gather the name of our employee. Okay, go ahead and click on save. And you'll see that our field label has now changed. Okay. Next to required, go ahead and double click on that and change this to yes. And click save. Okay, so this makes it so that we can't actually publish or save the document to the platform until we have filled out this particular metadata field. Okay. All right, for the next one, we're going to go ahead and click on the Fields tab here again to make sure we can see all of our fields. And we're going to go ahead and drag an integer field to the right column. Okay, so that's going to be right smack dab in the middle. Go ahead and drag that under full name. Okay, click to edit this, or again, click on the little wrench there. We're going to double click next to field label again. Okay. And we're going to call this one employee ID number. And click save. Okay. And we're going to make this required as well. So go ahead and click on the required value, change it to yes, and click save. Okay, so nice and easy. We can go ahead and add a few more here. So the next one we'll add as a field to gather the home address. Okay, so click on fields again. Go ahead and add a text field underneath the employee ID number. Okay, go ahead and click on this to edit it. Change the field label to home address. And click save. All right, and we're going to make this required as well. So go ahead and double click on required. Click yes and save. Okay, we need a few more fields here. So the next one we'll do is get the date of birth. Okay, so we can go ahead and add a date field. So click on fields again. You'll find the date field at the top right. Go ahead and drag that underneath home address. Click to edit. Double click on date. Okay, we'll name this date of birth. Okay, by the way, if that wasn't clear, when I said click on date here, I meant the field label. Okay, so you can see what I just did there. All right, we're going to make this required as well. Okay, so this just makes it so that all this employee information must be there when an employee document is added, when a basic employee record is added to the site. Okay, again, by enforcing this, it'll make it easier for our HR team to be able to find this information when they need to access it later on. Okay. All right, go ahead and click on the Fields tab again. We're going to go ahead and add a field for the job title. Okay, so this will just be another text field. So go ahead and drag text underneath date of birth. Click to edit. Okay, double click on the field label here, just like we've done before. Okay, we're going to call this job title and click save. Okay, we're going to go ahead and make this required again. So double click on required, change it to yes, and click save. All right, and this has all the information we want to go ahead and use for our employee records document type. Okay, so from here, we can go ahead and just scroll down and click save. Okay, so if you'll see here, before I click save, there is an additional metadata field section. Okay, and this is where I can go ahead and plug in those metadata sets that I was discussing earlier. Okay, the metadata sets here again can be a number of these fields that are predefined for me, and I can just plug them right into the document type. Okay, for now we don't have any, but it's worth pointing out here for you guys to see. Okay, all right, so go ahead and click save, and we will now have our basic employee record that can only be used at this point in the Livingston Loop site. Okay, so that's one aspect of the sites being their own group of content. All right. if I create something in one site, such as the Livingston Loop, then I won't have access to that resource in another site, such as the Livingston Hotels and Resorts site. Okay. Now there is a couple of ways to work around this. The best way, or the best solution, I would say, for getting around this in Liferay is using what's called the global site. Okay. Now the global site is going to be a site that doesn't have any pages, but it is still a group of content, and whatever content is created there can be accessed across all of the sites on the platform. Okay. So we'll look at an example of that a little bit later on. Okay. But first, to see what this looks like to add a basic employee record, let's add a new document here and make sure it's organized in a folder. Okay. All right, so go ahead and click on the Documents and Media tab at the top left. Okay. Click on the Add button here. Here you'll see we can add folders. This is where we can add our repository, as I showed you earlier. You can add your documents, so basic or multiple documents, and then you can see all of the different document types that are available to us, including at the bottom of the list, the basic employee record. So first, let's go ahead and add a folder. It's the first option at the top, and then we can add a basic employee record into our folder. Okay, so go ahead and click on Add Folder. We're going to name this one just simply Employee Records. Okay, nice and easy. Okay, if you want to add a description here, you can, okay, for storing employee records or something like that. And we can go ahead and click Save. All right, so we have our folder here. By the way, if you want to change the way this looks, okay, there are a couple of options for how you can do this. You can change it to a table. You can change it to a list. Okay. Oops. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and change it to list here. Okay, I kind of like that. And I'm going to click into the employee records folder. Okay. All right, so here I can go ahead and click on Add and Basic Employee Record. Okay, so that's going to be at that bottom of the list there. Click on Choose File at this top here. All right, and we're going to go to our Liferay folder. So again, that'll be C Liferay for you on Windows and User Home Liferay for those of us on Mac. Go to the LRU REL Content Management Exercises. All right, and we're going to be in our second module here. Okay, so open up 02 Digital Asset Management. Okay, there will be an omarmiles.pdf, so go ahead and open that up. Okay, and we now see that we have all of the information that can be stored with our new document. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill this out together. Okay, so we're going to do Omar Miles for the name. Okay, for the employee number, we're going to do 174903. Okay, or you can add whatever numbers you'd like. Okay. For the home address, go ahead and add this in here, 123 Main Street. Okay, in Anytown, USA. You guys know exactly where that is, I'm sure. Okay, for the date of birth, let's go ahead and we could just overwrite this here. So let's do 04/18/1983. Okay. And you'll actually see the date picker updates here as well once we do that. And for the job title, let's go ahead and add editor, comma, Livingston Life. Okay. So Omar is primarily going to be responsible for the Livingston Life blogs that we'll look at a little bit later on. Okay. We can scroll down and click Publish. Okay. All right, so now we have our new document and it has all of this information for us. If I were to click on the document again, okay, what I'll see is if I click on Info, I now have all of the information for my basic employee record. Okay. All right, so this is additional metadata alongside of the other metadata that already exists in Liferay. It allows us to more easily manage these kinds of documents together. Okay. All right, now to go back to that example of the global site, that special site where you can create content that is accessible throughout the platform, what we can do is we can also look at just a basic example of adding a document type to global and seeing how that can be accessed throughout our different sites that are on the platform. Okay. All right, so go ahead and click on the site selector. It's going to be in the site administration panel here. Okay, click on My Sites, and in My Sites, you will see Global. Okay. All right. So we have the global site here. Let's go ahead and open up the content section and documents and media, again, inside administration here. All right, this time we're going to add it through an import. So if you're not familiar with this process, in Liferay, we can export and import data through what's called a LAR file. This is basically a Liferay archive file. It's specific to Liferay, specific to the version that we're on. So we can import this, it will already exist for us, and we can take a look at how this is going to impact our other sites. Okay. So go ahead and go to the top right where you see the options menu. Click on options. Click on export import. Okay. Go ahead and click on import here. All right, and this is where we can add our LAR file. So click on select file. Okay. And go ahead and navigate to your exercises. So you'll see here for me, it's already in the 02 Digital Asset Management folder where we have our exercises. If you are not there, again, go to either C Liferay or User Home Liferay, find your exercises folder, go to that second chapter, and then you'll be able to find the image type.lar. Okay. So go ahead and select that, click open. Go ahead and click on continue and import. So when you see it says successful, okay, we should be good to go. You can go ahead and click on X here. All right, if you click on document types, what you should see in the global site is our new image type document type. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and add a new image to the Livingston Hotels and Resorts site. So that's sort of our default site that was created when we started the platform up for the first time. And we'll see that we can actually access this document type in another site. Okay, so this is just to demonstrate the benefits of taking advantage of the global site. Okay. All right. Now, because this is a beta version, sometimes load times take a little bit longer than expected. I find that if you just hit refresh, it'll go ahead and bring you to where you were going. Okay. So we see here we have image type in our document types. We're still in global. Okay. So to quickly get back to the Livingston Hotels and Resorts site, we can actually just go ahead and click on Livingston Hotels and Resorts at the top left. Okay. This will bring us to the default site. Otherwise, of course, we can use that site selector like we did before. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and add an image here as well. So click on Content and Documents and Media in our main site. Okay. Go ahead and click Add and Image Type, which you'll find at the bottom. Okay, so again, we added this to global, and we can now see that in a different site, we have access to that document type. Okay. Go ahead and click on Choose File and select the grandhotel.jpg. Open it up. Okay. And we have the name and the image type here. Okay. So for the name, go ahead and just type Grand Livingston Hotel. All right, and after we've typed in the name, we can go ahead and click on the image type, which is a drop down here. And we can go ahead and select on front page. It's an image we can use for the front page of our default Livingston Hotels and Resorts site. Okay. And then we can go ahead and hit publish. All right. So these are just some examples of how we can manage our digital assets, or in our case, our documents here. Okay. Again, just to recap everything we've said here, All right, we have the documents and media that can already store documents in different ways. We can store it through the Liferay repository with all of those features. We can plug in an external repository, okay? We can use Liferay Sync as an external app that allows us to manage our documents even if we're not on our Liferay platform, okay? And otherwise, we can use folders and metadata, which is generally true of most assets, okay? We can use folders or the folder feature with some of our other assets, and we can add metadata, which we'll talk about in the next video. But with documents specifically, we also have the ability to create document types and metadata sets. And these document types allow us to identify a specific kind of document and identify what additional metadata needs to be stored alongside that document, okay? And as I mentioned, the metadata sets will allow us to predefine some of those metadata fields and reuse them across different document types, okay? So in the next video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about tags and categories. So the metadata that is common across all of the assets so that when we are managing our digital assets, we can take advantage of the asset framework and make sure that the metadata is there to keep it organized alongside of features like the folders, okay? So stick around for the next video and we will continue talking about our metadata options.